The gigantic government sucks. Pursuit of happiness radio is deluxe. Liberty and freedom will make you smile. The pursuit of happiness on your radio dial. Just as cheeseburgers and liberty fries, it's pursuit of happiness time.
Good day. Greetings to you all. It is an unusual episode of Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness here on KPRC 950. Let me turn the cameras on. There we are. There I am. So we're live right now. We're doing things a little differently today. We are streaming live on social media, and we're doing so for a reason. I have two guests in studio right now. I live in the Texas 7th Congressional District. I live right down the street from this radio station located in the uptown neighborhood of Houston. My congressional leader, my representative, is a nightmare. Lizzie Fletcher is the Nancy Pelosi of Texas. I am not a big fan of her. Don't care for the woman. Would love to get somebody else in that position. Now, there's a runoff to see who will be the Republican candidate. And I'm very proud, I'm very honored to be sitting in front of both of those candidates right now. One of those candidates is Kane. Ladies first, how are you? Good afternoon.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on, Kenny.
Awesome to have you here. And Kenneth Omoruyi, how are you, my brother?
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And I said your last name correctly.
That's Omari, correct.
Omari. Okay. Yeah. I feel like I never get anything right. But I'm excited to have both of you guys here today. And I'm running, so this is a one-man wrecking crew today. I'm running the cameras, and I'm running the microphone, and I'm moderating the debate, because that's the kind of exciting stuff we do here in AM radio. Hopefully hundreds of people will be connecting to us right now on social media. It looks like many are. And many more will be listening on the radio. So I reached out to listeners to ask them for questions. I wrote a few questions myself. And I guess the most obvious thing to start with would be this. Caroline, why are you running for Congress? Why did you decide to do this?
So I'm a small business owner. I've owned my own company for 12 years. And what we do is property management. We manage apartment communities, and we actually have one commercial property. And when COVID rolled around in 2020 and they started closing businesses and closing our houses of worship, I was not the one sitting in my house eating bonbons. I was the one saying, wait a second, there is something much larger at play here. Went over to Facebook. Nobody's talking about it there. They're fat and happy on the couch. And went over to Twitter, and people are talking about it. My question was, where's the Constitution, right? We have constitutional protections, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And those were seriously infringed upon at that time, so much so that, I was jolted out of my bed from a long winter sleep, thinking that I knew what was going on with politics. I'd watch, an hour on Fox News every morning thinking, hey, I know exactly what's going on with my government. Joke was on me. So started to donate to candidates thinking these people can get it turned around, working elections so that they don't steal our elections anymore. And the opportunity was presented to me on the very day that I had to lay a couple of folks off in my office. Did I want to run for office? And I, told them I would get back to them, prayed on it, talked to my husband a little bit, began that conversation, and announced a couple of months later.
So a lot of it had to do with the government overreach of the pandemic, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean, it was pure anger that nobody else was getting it done, and nobody else seemed to be seeing the things that I was seeing with the government overreach and really outright communism at this point.
Kenneth, how about you, my brother? Why'd you decide to run for Congress?
Thank you so much, Kenny, for this opportunity once again. I am running to give back to a country that has given me everything that I have today.
Right.
I'm a first-generation American, and even if I want to hide it, I can hide my accent. So you can always know that I wasn't born here. So I became an American citizen, and I'm extremely grateful to this country for the opportunity that I have, given the enormous, things that I have experienced in this country. The best of this country lies in the people that she has, and America represents the last beacon of hope to billions of people from every corner of the world. Today, I'm an educator. Is an extension of what I have been doing for the past 7 years. I started teaching in 2017, and it was my way of giving back. And I chose to actually teach at a community college. I started teaching at Houston Community College, and I moved to Lone Star College, where I still teach. And even in the middle of this whole election, I am still teaching. Right now, I'm still taking 2 classes. And the reason why I'm doing this is a way of giving back to this society that has given me so much.
Excellent. I like that. And so both of you've been living in Texas for a while. You're established here. You guys are comfortable. And you look at somebody like Lizzie Fletcher and you've decided, I feel like I could do a better job than her. Caroline, what is it about Lizzie Fletcher? What is it about District 7 that made you decide to run? I mean, I assume you live in the district. This is your congressional representative. Why do you not want her to be your lawmaker?
So Lizzie Fletcher has a 0% constitutional rating in the way that she legislates. So 0% of the time does she vote with the Constitution. It does vote lockstep with Nancy Pelosi. She will tell you to your face that she's a moderate, and she's anything but. You've got to look at her voting record. She sends out these very well-written rainbows and unicorns emails. And unless you're actually checking the legislation that she's saying that she voted for or against and the reasons why, it sounds fantastic until you look at the actual legislation. And all it is doing is bringing us closer and closer to communism. I live in what used to be the district. It is not the district anymore. It's not constitutionally required, but I have spent 20 years in the district and 40 years in Houston. So I do say y'all, and I give hugs, and I'm Texas through and through. I've been here probably longer than either of you, just because I'm older than you, Kenny.
Sure.
Houston is my home, and I have seen this district go from a stronghold Republican district for decades and decades and decades until 2018, when all of a sudden a Democrat is able to swoop in and take this district away, which makes no sense, right? You think since 2018 this country has become more democratic, more liberal, in the feeling and rationale of society. I disagree with that. We are moving farther and farther to the right, coming to a common ground to protect our kids. And so the time is ripe to take that district stronghold back and make it a Republican stronghold.
Yeah. Kenneth, what do you think? Lizzie Fletcher, you obviously don't think she's qualified to be in charge of District 7. Why is that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me make a very clear distinction, not to get the ding at my opponent here. I am the only candidate in this race that actually live in the district. Having said that, I come from the oil and gas. Most of my background as an accountant spent with the oil and gas. My most recent corporate America experience was with Schlumberger. And I understand the importance of the oil and gas industry. Houston is the oil and gas capital of the world. And today, we as a country, I think there definitely needs to be a lot more to be done in that regard. There's so much talk about Green New Deal, and I think the oil and gas industry are suffering from some of the repercussions of this bill that was voted for by the current incumbent. So we think that that's not representative of the district, and we believe moving this country in the right direction. In the last administration, we know how America was almost energy independent, and today is far from that. We now go outside of the country to beg for oil, which is actually in a disaster. And I think that that doesn't represent this country and this district well.
Caroline, I didn't know what he just said. You live in the area, right? I mean, I presume
I do. Yeah, I went to Bel Air and Westbury High Schools. Grew up in Southwest and West Houston. My first, second, third, fourth apartments were in what is now the district. I don't know if historically they were. My first home, and the home I live in right now was the district until the district was migrated. So I am a Houstonian through and through. I spend, my days and evenings in the district. So I am just maybe 7-8 miles north of the district at this point. And Wesley Hunt is doing a good job for us. It didn't make any sense for me to try and get rid of a patriot that's in office doing the right thing by his constituents.
Yeah, Wesley is a good friend. He's been on the show. I think he's doing an awesome job, too.
Yep, agreed.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. I want to talk about Wesley and some of the other local Republicans, Troy Nels, other people that you guys would be working with, and get your thoughts on them. Also, we have people watching us streaming online right now. It looks like we have a few hundred people on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So we're going to get some of their questions as well when we get back. Don't change the channel, KPRC 950.
Kenny Webster, the best-looking dude on radio. And if you've seen the competition, that's not saying a whole hell of a lot.
All right, to those of you watching us live streaming right now, you are watching a recording session of a live political debate that is going to air later this afternoon, right before rush hour on KPRC 950. unedited, so none of this will be changed or anything. You guys are watching it live right now, streaming online. What you're watching right now is me saving the first segment that we just recorded, which isn't the most exciting thing, but anyway, it only takes a few seconds, so stand by, and the next segment will begin literally seconds from now. Oh, we're back. Greetings, everybody. Kenny Webster at KPRC 950 live from Texas Congressional District 7. I think we're in District 7, right, aren't we? I live a couple blocks from here, and I'm in District 7. And just looking at a map here, I don't live in this office building, so I don't vote from here, but is it what?
Yeah, and this is Wesley down to Westheimer, and it actually goes a little bit south of Westheimer right here. Over to mid lane,
so
and then at mid lane it jumps up again.
So that's Caroline Kane, one of the two candidates that's part of this debate today to see who's going to be the runoff. They're in a runoff debate race right now. Kenneth Omoruyi and Caroline Kane, and so those are your two options. You guys are, like you just said, Caroline, you think Wesley is a good candidate, and you didn't want to challenge him. You live near the district, so you've decided Lizzie Fletcher's the one that's got to go. I get that. I tend to agree with that. The other people in the area, the other Republicans in the area are Troy Nehls and Dan Crenshaw. And Kenneth, since we left off with Caroline, we'll start with you on this one. Looking at who the local Republicans are, looking at who our local representatives are, who do you see yourself most similar to? Who do you think you're the most different from?
No, well, I think the three names you just mentioned, especially Wesley Hunt and Troy Nehls, these are very, very great lawmakers, and I definitely believe that those are very good models to be able to pattern our own leadership style from. And another person who, beyond just the congressman, well, the House, the U.S. Senate right now, Senator Ted Cruz is one person who I admire a lot, not just because of his faith, but because of how much he stands for America. And I think that those are very good role models.
Any thoughts on Dan Crenshaw?
Well, I have my reservations about some of the policies that he has maybe voted for, some of the things in the past, but I would not want to dwell in that. But right now, I want to focus on Texas 7 Congressional District.
Caroline, if you are Lizzie Fletcher's opponent and you win, like I said, Troy Nehls, Wesley Hunt, Dan Crenshaw, these are people you'll probably be on an airplane with a lot, traveling off to Washington, D.C. Where do you put yourself next to those candidates?
I would say I'm most closely aligned with Wesley Hunt. He is Freedom Caucus, and I would love to be a part of the Freedom Caucus. I know that Matt Gaetz, who is one of my heroes. I'm also not taking any lobbyist or PAC money, just like him. I intend to keep my whistle clean, right, and untainted. So in that regard, I am mostly aligned with Wesley Hunt. With Dan Crenshaw, Wesley is at a 90% rating when voting with the Constitution. When you're looking at Dan Crenshaw, he's in the 60s. And we need our conservatives to truly be conservative and be more in that 90 percentile range. Chip Roy is at 100%. 100% of the time, Chip Roy votes with the Constitution. And that's where I aim to be.
Yeah, when, you brought up Chip Roy. Chip Roy was a little controversial because he was not a Trump supporter. He was a DeSantis guy. I think we all agree it's Trump at this point. I'm sure everybody.
Amen.
Yeah, you guys, you're both Trump supporters. Did you in the primaries? Were you guys into
Absolutely.
DeSantis or any of the?
Never.
Never. No, both of you are Trump people, I assume. Well, good. Okay. All right. So all that being said, issues. Right. Let's get down to specific issues. Kenneth. When you look at immigration, the economy, Ukraine, war, oil and gas, what do you think is the most important right now to people in Texas?
I think anybody who actually have the interest of America at heart should be talking about what's going on in the southern border. Everyone should be focused on what's going on there because today it's absolutely a mess. We need strong and secure borders. Even from third world countries, countries that are not even developed countries, they don't have as much porous borders as we have today. And I think that is an issue. So beyond that issue is the economy. I say it this way, when you go to the grocery store when you go to the gas station, you don't get asked if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. You don't get asked if you're a liberal or you're a conservative. We all are feeling the pains and the the economic woes that are going on today. Everybody's feeling it, and we definitely need the economy to turn around for the better to what we used to have. I mean, today the gas of the price of a gallon is above $3, and it used to be less than $1 before. So inflation is through the roof, interest rate is through the roof, and everybody is feeling the brunt of it. So economy and strong borders are my very, very big issues that we're running on. And then finally, I think, as a conservative, I believe fiscal responsibility should be the hallmark of what we should be advocating for. I'm an accountant by training. My skill, based on my training, is really, really hinged on fiscal responsibility. And I think we need more accountants in Congress. Would you believe, Kenny, that we have only 4 accountants today in Congress?
Really? Who are they?
Well, we have 3 of them that are Republicans. 3 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and only 1 in the Senate, 3 in the House, in the U.S. House.
It does not surprise me that there are Republicans. A majority of them are Republicans. Caroline, same question for you. Biggest issue for you right now? What is the most pressing? What's the thing we need to fix first?
100% right now in terms of fires that need to be put out would be at the southern border. We've got trafficking of kids. We've got trafficking of human beings, trafficking of drugs, trafficking of weapons, all coming across our southern border with the aid of the United States government. So we have Ken Paxton, who is looking into shutting down NGOs, which is a big part of my platform that I speak out about all the time, non-governmental organizations, where our tax dollars are laundered through these organizations to allow this trafficking to happen, to allow these illegals to come into our nation. Our tax dollars are paying for them to be housed. They're paying for their medicine, putting our veterans out on the street. It is absolutely a humanitarian crisis and a national security issue. So that is first and foremost, and the second being the economy. If we can get rid of some of these agencies or the NGOs that are affiliated with them that launder our tax dollars, that is where is going to get us the biggest break in taxes and in expenses that the United States is dealing with right now. We have a government that's gone off the guardrails. It is no longer working for people like me and you. The passage of the FISA renewal proves that. We had 119 Republicans vote with Democrats to allow the illegal spying on Americans for another 5 years. And so, I mean, they're probably listening right now. They don't need, they need very little. If somebody in this room is on a watch list, they've been taken to FISA, then they can monitor 5 people that person is friends with, and then 5 people that those people are friends with. And you wind up casting a web of 100 or more people with one FISA trip to the FISA court. So that happened with the Patriot Act, and it's a disgrace that our Congress just threw us under the bus again.
The FISA issue, Kenneth, seems to be something that has divided Republicans a bit. You heard what Caroline just said. Do you disagree with anything she said?
No, absolutely. I think that's one of the issues I would say we'll probably see eye to eye on. Yes, and I don't disagree with that.
Okay, let's go back to the immigration thing for a second with both of you. Let's say that hypothetically November happens and one of the two of you gets elected, but Trump doesn't. Worst possible scenario. I mean, it's not the worst scenario. It would be everybody loses, right? But the second worst scenario would be Trump doesn't win in November and we're still the underdogs. Kenneth, it's one thing when you have a president that has executive orders to fix the border. What do you do as the contender? If the Republicans don't take the White House, if we don't take the Senate as a member of the House, what do you do?
Well, that is a hypothetical situation, and I'm glad that you said that's a worst case scenario, because we don't pray that ever happens. We pray that the best, right? We win the House, but in such a situation, we just need to stand our ground. We need to advocate for the policies that shaped what we believe in. If you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything. So we're going to stand on the policy that we believe is right. The fact that if that hypothesis doesn't work doesn't mean that what we're advocating for was not we didn't believe what we're advocating for. We are going to believe that we need to secure the border That is a commonsensical issue. I don't think we need any rocket science to understand that the issues that we are facing today, both economy actually have a direct consequence of the open borders, because there is a direct correlation between the open borders and some of the things we are seeing today that we don't think is right.
All right, Caroline, same question for you. You get to Washington, D.C., you represent District 7, but Joe Biden's the president. Starting with immigration, be an obvious example. What do you do as a member of the underdog party?
Well, first, I refuse to entertain the notion that Donald Trump will not win this. However,
okay, I love that.
We will go into your complete hypothetical situation.
Of course.
There are things that the Congress can do constitutionally, and that is we can call up a militia to protect from invasion. And that is specifically mentioned in the Constitution. Nobody talks about it. Everybody says, oh, Congress, just holds the purse strings. No, we have powers. So we can certainly, look into that, make sure that that gets engaged, and then see if we can get DHS defunded. That would be, if we could get a super majority, we can get a lot done, right? With a super majority, you don't even need the president anymore. If we can have a 66% super majority in both houses, we get a lot done. So God will provide is what I'm saying. So one way or another, we will be able to secure this country and bring it back. I feel as though we have a huge win coming our way. God's going to move. Sorry, I'm a believer in Christ, a believer in God. This is a coveted nation. So the Creator was invoked in the creation of this nation, and He will move for us.
I love that. That's a great answer. I am Kenny Webster. You are watching or listening to a live debate right now happening on KPRC 950 with Kenneth Omoruyi and Caroline Kane. And they're competing to see who's going to be the candidate to take down Lizzie Fletcher, figuratively speaking, of course, coming this November. Don't change your channel. More with us right after this.
Late last night, after a few beers, we discovered the art of deceiving politicians. Just tell them the truth, and they'll never believe you. Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness.
Hey, everybody watching us on social media. If you're just connecting to this video, you heard me just explain what we're doing right now. I am saving segments. This debate will air later this afternoon on KPRC 950. But you guys are watching it live right now on social media. So hang out for a second while I save that segment. And the next segment will begin literally seconds from now. If you're watching us on social media, leave your questions in the comment section, and we will get to them in this segment or the next segment. Hey, we're back. Thank you so much to everybody watching us on social media right now. Everybody listening live on the radio to see who is going to be challenging Lizzie Fletcher coming this November for congressional districts. So this is very important. Once upon a time, John Culbertson, for about 2 decades, was in charge of District 7. And back in 2019, Lizzie Fletcher won. It's just been that way ever since. It's unfortunate. People often think that after Republicans lose a district, we often just write that off. We think, all right, that's the way it is now. I think of District 7 as being kind of like a swing state. It's a swing district. We controlled it a short time ago. Now, as Republicans, we don't control it anymore. And I don't take that for granted. I think anything can happen. Anything can change. And so if you're just turning on your radio today, I asked Caroline Kane and Kenneth Omoruyi to come in today and tell us about their platform, about their candidacy. Where did we leave off at? Who went last there? I've kind of lost track of what I was doing. Caroline, did you speak?
We were talking a little bit about immigration. And
no, but who answered? You answered the last question, right?
I did.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're going back and forth. Even Stevens here. I'm running a camera, microphones, and a board, and asking questions alone. We'll pick it back up with Kenneth. Kenneth, I don't feel like, obviously you guys have very different backgrounds, and I think that's interesting. But platform-wise, you both seem to be America first, Texas first, patriotic. You care about the border. You both seem to have really similar platforms. What's the difference between you and Caroline?
Again, thank you. So I am a first-generation American by choice. And as somebody who I know is not a traditional candidate that you see all the time, it's rare to have a first-generation American immigrant run for a public office like the U.S. Congress. I believe I bring a lot of my experience having been through the legal immigration process. And who best speak to the issue of immigration today? Because a lot of people, especially on the left, there's this narrative that we conservative, we hate immigrants. They can't tell someone like me that. The reason why they can't tell me that is because I negate that narrative. There's a difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. So, and that's one very unique difference between myself and then I'm the only one who live in a district. You know, it's very, very, very different. You know, my kids attend school in the district. I live in the district. I work in the district. I have a lot of ties within the district because this is where I live. My neighbors and everyone who I connect with within the district are people who I know means well for the district. I don't think my opponent is not qualified to run in this race. I absolutely don't think so. But I just believe that as somebody who live in the district, we have a lot to bring to connect with.
How about policy stuff, though? If somebody it's nice to have a different background. Obviously, we all have different backgrounds. If somebody sends you to D.C., how will you vote differently than Caroline? Is there any issue you and her might differ on?
Well, right now, I mean, on the issues that the most pressing issues, we just immigration, the issues of the economy. I think we probably align on those issues. But I think experience matters. I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. I bring a lot of experience from that background. When we talk about fiscal responsibility, who best identify what it means to balance the budget? The last time the U.S. budget was in balance was over 22 years ago. And as an accountant, I think we need more people who understand the practicality of what it means to balance the budget.
And do you create budgets as a CPA?
Well, we have skills to be able to balance the budget, and we are trained to do so.
Interesting. All right, Caroline, same question for you. Policy-wise, do you see your platform as being different in any way? Do you think there's an issue, whether it be immigration, war, economy, anything, where you differ from Kenneth?
Absolutely. So I have always said that I'm America first and Texas first, and have aligned myself with those candidates as they have been running for office. We had the Dirty Dozen here in Texas, and so aligned myself with some of those folks that were trying to unseat these folks in our House here that perhaps were not working for the people. So I have always said that I'm America first. That's part of my platform. America comes first before any foreign policy or any money that may be going overseas. We have a huge crisis here in the United States, and our focus needs to be on the United States. We're spending $8 trillion a year. We're bringing in $4 trillion, which means that we're borrowing $4 trillion a year. By the time our kids, my kids, your kids grow up, we're going to have, $100 trillion deficit. And we can't have that. It actually affects our national security. We've got other countries that are ganging up on the U.S. dollar to collapse that. So I understand who the enemy is. I'm also a constitutionalist, and that is not something that Kenneth has ever mentioned. He doesn't really want to discuss the Constitution. And in my opinion, we don't get the country back without going to a constitutional form of government that is for the people and by the people. So I consider this a job interview for the people. I will be their public servant. I don't want to be a somebody. I want to get the job done. I'm not going to be popular when I get there. And I'm telling you, as a business owner, I've been creating budgets for 30 years. We have 7 or 8 budgets at this point that we have to create every year. We have to stick to the budget. When we run out of money, we can't spend any more money. And I hire CPAs. We hire them and fire them. And what we do is if we got one in-house, we put them in the corner and let them do numbers. That's what CPAs do.
Wow.
So
interesting.
Kenneth, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think that's a very debasing way to talk to refer to CPAs. You hire them, put them in the corner. I don't think that's what CPAs. The work of a CPA is beyond that. Just to make that clarification, you don't hold any license, so I can imagine why you would say anything like that. I consider that a very, very debased way to talk to professionals like CPAs.
I'm sorry if you were offended, Kenneth.
Okay, all right, everybody. Well, look, okay, well, you made your point. So, all right, here's one for me. This is something I take very personally. As you know, it's a talk radio station, and a big part of what we do, this is a mix between new and old media. I'm a constitutionalist, like both of you claim to be. I care a lot about respecting free speech, respecting the media. And right now, as we're sitting here having this conversation, we are streaming to several social media platforms, including YouTube, Instagram, more than one Facebook account, more than one Twitter account. I'm just looking at a couple examples here. My personal Twitter account has 40,000 followers. According to what I could see on my screen, there's almost 200 people watching us right now. My morning show's Facebook page, The Walton and Johnson Show, is also carrying this debate right now. My morning show's Facebook page has 450,000 followers on it, and there are, I think, 8 people that can see us. Now, I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, I don't either.
I think that I think that ever since the 2020 election, I started criticizing election results and criticizing vaccines and things like that. I think I've been getting censored, and I think a lot of people have. I think a lot of conservatives have had this problem. It's part of the reason why Elon Musk bought Twitter. But all that being said, right, besides private industry stepping in, a guy like Elon Musk, what else can we do without violating the Constitution to protect the speech of journalists and activists who lean to the right on digital platforms? Caroline, would you like to go first?
Well, so all of our freedoms and protections right now are under assault. That's what communism is, right? Imagine a commune. They want us all to live together in a 15-minute city, and they will tell us what's important to us. And so, step one is to suppress our speech so that we can't communicate with one another. We are oppressed. We feel as though we are the only person in the world with these feelings and thoughts. And so suppression is a real thing. I know that it's happening heavily on Facebook and Instagram. Obviously they did everything they could to throw the 2020 election, and there have been zero consequences. So I am very hesitant to advertise on Facebook for that reason. If you spend those dollars, are they really going to reach anybody? Twitter, I'm very grateful for. I don't know that we would have come this far in having people understand what is happening to the country if it weren't for Twitter and what Elon Musk has done. And so for that, I am very, very grateful. So I agree with you. Suppression is happening. Our Constitution is being buried. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment, Fourth through Seventh Amendment, dealing with our judicial system. We are under attack, and all of these things were put in place to prevent exactly what is happening. And we are not rising up and claiming our constitutional rights. And it's a difficult process because without the judicial branch being intact, we don't have a whole lot of chance. And so that's what's happening is Democrats are overrunning these local judiciaries and state judiciaries. So you're seeing this at every level, and that's why crime is happening, because there is no punishment for what is happening after a crime is committed. So it's a multifaceted attack on our constitutional freedoms.
Kenneth, same question to you. Social media censorship. I mean, every conservative, libertarian, Republican, populist, this is something that gets complained about a lot by right-wing thinkers. What do we do about it?
Yes, I'll piggyback on the question that you had asked earlier, but yes, I absolutely agree with that. One of the things that I think is a problem is actually enforcement. America was not created yesterday. America has been a very, very established country for centuries, and the enforcement, the will to enforcing the constitutional rights of Americans is the issue that we're talking about. Whether censorship, which of course I agree with currently exists, but I think we need to enforce, those constitutional rights so that way we can, as Americans, adhere to all of those things that we have in the Constitution. I think one of the things that was mentioned earlier that you had asked was what was maybe one of the differences between how we would vote. And then, it was mentioned that, America first policies, which I absolutely agree with that. And I also want to quickly make a quick maybe point here. America represents the last beacon of hope to billions of people from every corner of the world. And that comes with responsibilities. That's how it works. If we want to keep being the largest economy in the world, if we want to keep being the most super advanced, which is the superpower of the world,
right,
that has responsibilities. American first doesn't mean America alone. It means taking responsibility for being at the forefront of what's happening in the world. And because of that, anything that happens around the world, the U.S. have a responsibility to be able to, as the leader, when they say the President of America is a leader of the free world, the meaning of that is that the responsibility of making sure that everything that is happening, there is no the dictatorship that is going on. If things are happening that is destroyed, that is going to destroy the world, right? As America, we as a country, because of the responsibility that falls on our shoulder as the greatest nation in the world, we need to be able to make sure that we look at those external aggressions. That is what it means to be a leader.
I'll tell you what, we got a break. I want to get back to that. Also, we're getting questions online from listeners, including an incredibly liberal member of the Houston editorial board appears to be watching us right now. I bet a lot of you know who he is, and he has a question he wants to ask both you guys, so don't change the channel. We'll be right back.
We could certainly slow the aging process if aging had to pass its way through slow-ass Congress. Take another vacation, why don't you? Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness.
Hey, if you guys are watching us on social media, don't change the channel. Don't stop the stream, that is. Sorry, force of habit. We're recording a live debate right now that will air later this afternoon on KPRC 950, unedited, of course. And you all, hundreds of you watching me right now, are witnesses to that. So stand by. This will continue right now. Don't go anywhere. I'm very stubborn. I have two producers in the morning, one producer in the afternoon. I have a program director. I have a digital team down the hall. And they all would have helped me do this, run the board, handle the cameras and all that. But I refuse. I do everything alone. That's I am. I'm like that. Me and my French bulldog, Milton Friedman. But so today I am hosting a talk radio show, running a camera operation here. It's just 4 buttons. It's not as complicated as it sounds. And conducting and moderating a debate between two of my local favorite conservatives, two people I would love to see either one of you make it to Washington, D.C. Kenneth Omoruyi is here and Caroline Kane. They are challenging Lizzie Fletcher to see who will be the lawmaker for Texas 7th Congressional District. It's very personal to me. Who wins this race? Because she's my lawmaker and she sucks. Nobody likes Lizzie Fletcher. Obviously she won the race, so local Democrats do, but certainly not the people that are listening to this radio show. At least I wouldn't have thought so. There's somebody listening to this radio show right now who probably does like Lizzie Fletcher. His name is Evan Mintz. Evan Mintz is, you guys might know him. He's a local activist. He's describes himself as, what does his biography say here? He's from the Houston Chronicle editorial board, but he does something else now. I think he works for the Arnolds or something like. I don't want to. I'm probably misstating what he does for a living, but he's a Pulitzer finalist, which is do you guys know that's funny? Do you guys know why that's funny? Anybody, I don't know if you're supposed to know this, but anybody can apply to be a Pulitzer finalist, Evan. He's probably going to get mad at me on Twitter for saying that. Anybody can be a Pulitzer finalist. Did you guys know that? Anyone could be. It means nothing. Anyone could be a Pulitzer finalist. You just have to apply for it. Doesn't mean you're a winner. Anyway, sorry, Evan. But Evan did ask you guys this. We live in Houston. There's a lot of hurricanes here. Sadly, that's just an issue. Everybody's got, mudslides in California, droughts, or earthquakes, that sort. Well, in Texas, Hurricane Alley, they call it, we have hurricanes. And Evan really wants to know how you guys feel about the Ike Dike. Are you both familiar with this? Is a thing they've talked about for years in Houston, Texas, about building this thing called the Ike Dike in Galveston Bay. I'm not an expert on this, but I know that this is something a lot of people talk about that is supposed to help us out in the event of a hurricane. And I think a lot of people would agree this is really more of a local issue, but it would depend on federal funding. Do either of you have a strong opinion about this? Would you like to respond to Evan Mintz of the Houston Chronicle editorial board, or former editorial board? I don't know what he does now.
I don't know anything about the Ike Dike, so I can tell you that. What I do know is that millions and millions of dollars have been shoveled out by the federal government to Houston to address its flooding. 37 million was given to Lizzie's district when she had the Bear Creek area to handle that restoration. Whatever happened with these dollars, we don't know. There's another $10 million that was given to the Meyerland area. And so these monies are going to our city and county, rather than we had a huge influx of money that went to the General Land Office, and the General Land Office is working with the Army Corps of Engineers. That's the way it needs to happen, okay? You can't send the money directly to a corrupt government. Everybody knows that Harris County and Houston are corrupt, or we're battling, making, some progress at the city level, but the county itself has a serious, and the city too, serious financial issues such that they are bankrupt. Both are bankrupt. And so you're going to send pallets of cash to bankrupt city and state authorities rather than the General Land Office, who can manage the project through the Army Corps of Engineers. So I'm more concerned about how the money flows to address these things, because there are unaccounted for dollars that are out there.
I think that's a fair response. For the record, to Caroline's credit here. Okay, so originally the Ike Dike it's supposed to be a coastal barrier that would protect Galveston Bay in the event of a hurricane. And originally it was supposed to cost $2 to $4 billion. In 2021, it was determined to be $29 billion. A short time later, it was determined to be $34 billion. Honestly, is that enough? Is that
how many dikes should we have had by now?
How many dikes could we have? I don't know. Kenneth, do you want to respond to Evan Mintz's question? Caroline did.
Thank you for that. Education about the Ike Dive. I never really. I won't sit here. I can't sit here and tell you I'm an expert in what that is. But one thing for sure is we've been, in Houston, prone to the Hurricane Harvey, and so anything that we're going to be able to do to prevent a more devastating situation like that, as long as we have a very comprehensive plan that experts in those areas look at it and believe that it will help to, mitigate certain situations like that. If it's worth taking an investment in that, I don't think that's going to be a bad idea to exploring. But again, accountability matters. It's not about spending. It's about being accountable for whatever we are spending. So we have to be sure before we shut down any idea, understanding the idea first. If it's worth it, then when policies are being taken, when we take policy classes, for example, you look at the merits and the demerits of a policy. If the merit outweighs the demerit, then you embark on those policies. But if the demerits, right, the disadvantage outweighs the advantages, then you disembark. That's how policy works.
Okay, I think you guys both gave great answers to that. I have a lot more questions in front of me, and to those of you watching us on social media, do you guys want to hang for an extra 10 minutes and do a little more on social media that won't be on the air? Because I'm getting good questions from people that I'd love to ask, and we have about 4 or 5 minutes left to show, so we're not going to be able to ask all of these. But while we're still on the radio here, and to those of you that are, if you're listening on the radio, you could connect with me on social media. I'm Kenny Webster. Find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, or The Walton and Johnson Show, your choice. I'm also on Instagram. The Deep Stank, that's hilarious. That's the name of a person on Twitter. He calls himself The Deep Stank. And he would like to know, what role has the CIA or the FBI played in the current political division of the country, and what actions would you take to deal with that? Caroline, you kind of touched on this earlier with the FISA issue, but this is bigger than just FISA.
Yes. Wow. He wants to go directly down the rabbit hole. So you better follow me on Twitter. It's Caroline Kane TX.
I have her tagged, by the way, to those of you. If you look at my Twitter account, I have both candidates tagged.
So this, the Communist Manifesto was entered into the Library of Congress in 1958. And if you look that up, they have completed everything on that list. And at the time, everybody thought McCarthy, who was, a communist hunter essentially, was a lunatic. They made him out to be crazy, which we can all relate to right now, right? You're a conspiracy theorist if you're going to speak out on anything like this. But there is something to be said for our intelligence agencies working together in tandem with other intelligence agencies across the world to usher out a new world order. And that is fact. It's provable at this point. We've got the World Economic Forum. We've got the World Health Organization. We've got the Council on Foreign Relations. We've got all of these globalist entities that have been setting policy for the United States for decades upon decades upon decades. And that's how we found ourselves here. I hate to say it, but it is a giant psyop. We were lulled to sleep so that we would tolerate these things. And so many of us, myself included, have woken up to this fact, and we're rising up to try and take our country back. We want our constitutional protections back.
Okay, Kenneth, same question for you. The FBI, the CIA, look, everybody knows the story of Carter Page, the social media giants being told to suppress a story about Hunter Biden's laptop. What do we do about this?
No, I think one of the things that was mentioned just now was that the intelligence agencies, that we have all of those agencies. I believe my opponents want to abolish all three-letter agencies. So I think it goes beyond that. There are reasons why these agencies were established. If I buy a vehicle and the vehicle, have an issue, for example, you take it to the mechanic to fix it so that we can bring the vehicle back to the original intent of that vehicle, why we should be, using it to commute. So that's how I think about those issues as well. If there are things or there are elements within any of those agencies that we know are doing things that are at variance with the original intention of those agencies, we need to fix that. And however the fixing it is going to take, that's going to be another entire discussion. But I think there are reasons why these institutions, they've been there for decades, right? Or for centuries, right? All of those three-letter words. Do I believe today that there are not things that some of those agencies needs to answer? No, I think there's quite a lot of controversies around some of them, but I think they need to be fixed. But I don't think we all need to just abolish all of those agencies that have three letters. That's not how government works.
All right, I'll tell you what, we are out of time here on KPRC, but if you're watching us on social media, don't stop. We'll keep going for another 10 or 15. Is that okay with both of you guys?
Yeah.
To everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in today on the radio. Jimmy Barrett, Jesse Kelly are on the way. Fox News at the top of the hour. Download the iHeartRadio app. Download the Walton & Johnson app, and you can listen to this interview and so much more great content. I'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning for more of what you bought a radio for. Again, if you're watching us streaming, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere.
You are listening to the Pursuit of Happiness Radio. Tell the government to kiss your ass when you listen to the show.
All right, we are clear on the radio. This is probably the first political debate in American history that included a doo-wop group singing the lyrics, "Tell the government to kiss your ass" while you listen to. So I'm very proud of that. But anyway, I'm Kenny Webster. If you're watching us on social media, if you're just getting connected, I am a humble part of one of the biggest radio shows in America, the Walton & Johnson Radio Show, executive producer and co-host of it. And I every afternoon I host this show here in Houston, Texas, 5 days a week, right at the beginning of rush hour, 3 p.m., where we discuss, among other things, mostly Texas and Houston-related political issues. And so but right now I'm interviewing two people. I would love to see either one of these people replace Lizzie Fletcher. I think that would be amazing. Kenneth Omoruyi is here. Caroline Kane is here. Both of them seem highly qualified for this job. What's the difference between the two of them is the question. And so today we're trying to answer that. I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys on social media. I have people texting me, answering very interesting questions. So let's do a lightning round right now. Tom Slocum texted me. I don't know if you know who that is. Local political activist, was a railroad candidate, railroad commissioner candidate, did not win, unfortunately. But Tom's a nice guy. A bunch of real quick questions here. He asks, should members of Congress be allowed to hold dual citizenship? Caroline, you go first.
Absolutely not.
Okay, very simple. Kenneth?
Constitution, I'll follow the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution.
And so you would say, yes, they should.
If the Constitution says so. If the Constitution says, I'll follow the Constitution. What does the Constitution say about that?
It's not addressed in the Constitution.
Well, if you were not born in the country, there are circumstances where when you become a United States citizen, you swear an oath to renounce any citizenship that you hold. That's what it means. I can understand because you don't have that experience.
We do have members of Congress who hold dual citizenship, and so that was the question.
No, so again, maybe I didn't understand what you meant, but what the question said is, as far as I'm concerned, if the Constitution, based on what you're swearing to, when you take an oath to become an American citizen, you renounce the citizenship of your birth. That is what you do when you become a naturalized citizen.
Caroline, you want to respond to that?
Well, there are probably close to 100 members of Congress currently that hold dual citizenship, and so we cannot count on their total allegiance to the United States.
Wow.
You don't agree with that, Kenneth?
If you were born outside, so there are things that you cannot choose as a human being, where you were born, right? Who your parents are. You can't choose certain things like that. So when you were born outside of America, like in my case, I don't think it should be a penalty against you because you were born, like sometimes my opponents have tried to do sometimes to make me feel un-American. There is no American that is more American than any American. We are all Americans, and we all deserve the same right as all Americans. So the issue of made in the USA, it shouldn't come into place because that's a way of realigning and not making everybody feel accepted. That's not a way to go. That's not the idea that defined this country as America. In answering your question, Kenny, I sincerely believe that if you read through, and I can pull it up real quickly, and I'll read it for you. When you become an American citizen, there is an oath you take. And on that oath, you renounce your citizenship of birth. I have it right here, and I can pull it up for you.
But bottom line, you wouldn't change that. Okay, hey, that's your answer. I respect that. Let's go back to this earlier. Kenneth, you had a lot to say about abolishing or not abolishing the CIA or the FBI. One question we got from a listener: which department, bureau, or agency in the federal government should be abolished, if any? If you believe an entity should be abolished, please explain why. Caroline, I'll let you go first.
So I feel as though our agencies are really the ones that are running our government. These agencies are the deep state. They are our unelected officials who set policy and are running our country. And so that said, the only two agencies that are on my safe list are the FAA and the FCC, so that our airwaves don't bounce into each other. We need to hear Kenny. And our airplanes don't bounce into each other. Everybody else needs to be thoroughly audited. We've got money that is pouring out of the United States. We can only account for about 3.7 trillion, and we're spending 8. So it all needs to be audited, and it all is eligible to be defunded. That's all Congress can do. Only the President of the United States can disband these organizations.
Well, I would just like to interject here. While I would not get rid of the FCC, I would like to point out that I do not like the FCC.
Yeah,
but I don't disagree with anything you said, and it doesn't matter what I think. But Kenneth, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's good that she had mentioned some exceptions. So some of what maybe I've understood before was that all of those 3 letters agencies should be abolished or should be defunded. Again, I think they should be fixed.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything that is beyond repair. If there are issues, again, you go back to the original intent of why, if a system is not functioning the way it's supposed to function, the result should not always be to just kill or shut down and just eliminate it. We should also open the opportunity to fixing such.
So you don't think there's any examples of government growth over the last couple centuries that were too much?
So, no, I agree with you, Kenny. I think there are things that are not functioning the way originally the intention is, intention was when they were set up. But I think in such a situation, giving my example earlier, is if you bought a car and the car had a technical fault or issue, that doesn't mean you should take the car to the junkyard and just trash it. You need to take it to the mechanic to fix it, right? However that fixing is going to take. When I mean fixing, in the case of an agency, if it has to do with reorganization, there are organizational restructuring, however that is going to take, so that I can explain better, let it be that way, but fixing it. But it could be, possibly, that fixing could be a way of merging organizations together, right? Like, creating an organization that can metamorphosize to a different organization to keep the intention of why that organization was originally, the founding fathers of America and some of the very great leaders that have set up some of these agencies, they know the importance of those agencies. So whether down the road some of those agencies they've gone left doesn't mean that they are beyond repair. I think we should think about fixing some of those errors.
Caroline, do you want to rebuttal that? You have any response to that?
Yeah, there are 6 duties that are outlined essentially in the Constitution. And we have 96 duties now as a federal government, which means we have at least 90 agencies that are essentially government overreach. The intent behind the formation of some of these agencies was the direct subversion of the American people, to subvert our will, to subvert our freedom. And these things have been going on for decades, and I'm sorry that you don't see that. I've lived here. I've lived in the United States for 53 years. I see the difference from the 1970s, before there was a Department of Education, and I also see now that we have half of our population reading at a 6th grade level. This was an intentional dumbing down of our population, and for me, it's a war on the people.
Thank you so much. I know you've lived here, and I know I wasn't born in America, but I believe that's why education matters. I have been educated enough. I have taken a class. I have taken a course, and I have taken policy, certifications that have made me more aware and actually a little bit very deeply on some of the policies that surround some of those agencies. So I don't think abolishing all 3-letter agencies is the solution to fixing them.
All right, you both answered the question. Let's get back to immigration. We talked about this earlier, and honestly, it's the biggest issue. Both of you guys agree this is probably the biggest issue. This and the economy, poll after poll seems to indicate this is what people are most concerned about. So let's start off with this. Everybody in this room probably agrees illegal immigration is a problem. Most people see that happening, human trafficking. There's no question about that. What about legal immigration? Republicans very rarely are actually asked to give a solid position on their position on legal immigration. Should we allow, how many legal immigrants should we allow into America per year, annually? How many immigrants should be allowed into America every year? A specific amount, and why? Caroline, why don't you go first?
So, given that we have at least 10 million, and the numbers are as high as 30 million illegal migrants in our country right now that our tax dollars are paying for, that is causing, the devastation in the United States. Once we get this border secured, I'm calling for a 5-year immigration moratorium. And so we will need that time to sort out the people that we have here. How long, that's going to take, we just don't know. We've got to analyze the condition of our country at that time. We've already got bridges that are not in good shape. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Our economy is a disaster. And so at the end of that 5 years, we will have analyzed what our needs are. And at that point, we will take a look, and we will vet the people that want to come in. And we will also look at what our needs are, which is something we're not doing now. We're not saying, oh, well, what is it that we need in our country that will put America first, right? America and Americans first. What is going to help to rebuild this nation to the strength and glory that it once had? So that's my standpoint on what needs to happen, in the next 5 years and probably the next 10 years while we sort through this mass migration that we're experiencing.
Kenneth, same question for you. Legal immigration, what do we do?
Well, yeah, right now, I actually think some of the most unfairness with the issue of the immigration happening today is actually felt most by those who are actually legally migrating into this country. There is a lay down process, and I know you have the theoretical understanding of how the immigration process works. I understand practically, haven't been through the system, how it works. And America was built on the idea of a free society. Everyone, if you are not a first generation American, you're probably a second or third generation. At some point, either you or your parents or your grandparents, they were immigrants as well. So I think it's not fair to people who are actually waiting in line to come into this country legally. What's happening now, whereby people can just jump in and then they get a free pass, I think it's not fair to them. But at the same time, whatever it's going to take for us to fix the immigration system, I think that process starts with securing the border.
All right, how about this one, guys? Mass deportation has been a topic that's been discussed a lot lately for illegal immigrations. Should we mass deport? How do we go about doing this? How do we do it without violating the Constitution? Caroline, you go first.
That is a tangled web that we are going to have to deal with. We've got to deal with this in a humanitarian way. What we really have at the southern border is a humanitarian crisis. These people are sitting in their own feces. And it is a crying shame that we are experiencing this as a nation because that's not who we are. So that said, they do need to be deported. Every single one of them. We've got to get a team together. I know that Tom Holman has agreed to come and work for President Trump. And I think that he would be the right person to head up that deportation team. It's my understanding that even if we had like 3 of the jumbo Army jets running 24/7, then it's going to take us 2.5 years to get all of these people out. And that's why I'm saying 5-year immigration moratorium, because once they're gone, what do we have left? What kind of damage have we created to the country?
Yeah, interesting answer. Okay, Kenneth, same question for you. Mass deportation. We're talking about illegal immigrants here. What do we do?
Yeah. So the question is, who, quote unquote, are we deporting? Everyone, and maybe we need to start, like, she said, it's a humanitarian issue. So how are we going to define who is going to be deported? I think maybe we can start from that. When you say illegal immigration and those who are already in the country, the Constitution of the United States is very, very clear. Crossing the border violates the U.S. Constitution, right? It's not a way to come into the country legally. So are we going to identify those who've come illegally into this country for the past how many years? What about those who have been in this country for 30 years, for 40 years, for 50 years, for some of them who now have second, third generation in this country? So are we going to deport all of them? How are we going to identify all of them? It's going to be it's going to be a web of, it's going to be a rabbit hole on how best to going through that. But again, anything that we have to do to fixing the immigration system, I will stand and I will agree with that. We just need to find the right way out. I'm not disagreeing with your position. I'm just thinking of how practicable it is to deport all of those people, because if we're deporting those who just came here, maybe through the border within maybe the last year, what about those who've been here through the border for the past 20 years, 30 years? What are we going to do about that? So how are we going to create that level playing ground to doing that? The first thing that I think should be done, that is the most commonsensical thing to do, is to secure the border, right? That's the first thing to do. So that way there is no continuation of what's been happening. And then we can put heads together and whatever we need to do to fixing the immigration system, I think we should do that. One other thing I want to actually bring into this to shift the mindset of a lot of people listening to this is this. You and I know, if you are in this country today, there are many people who are here, who came into the border, many of which are working. Some of them, their kids are attending school with our children. Do you actually know that there's a number, an identification number that is granted to those who want to file tax return? It's called the ITIN, Individual Tax Identification Number. It doesn't grant any legal status. It doesn't.
Right.
What it does is it gives them the opportunity to pay their fair share of taxes, right? There are a lot of people who actually have the ITIN number and they pay taxes. And it is actually a loss economically to us as a country that a lot of these people are here and they are not paying taxes. You and I are the one paying for the social amenities that they are using. So what do we do about that? I'm talking from the economic standpoint. How do we create a win-win situation? I don't want to, there's no one silver bullet answer that can fix all of this, but can we bring heads together to think what's the best situation to fixing what's currently, we have a situation on our hands.
Well, we are heading for a catastrophe, and you're bringing up the TIN number. Anybody who is not legal.
TIN number called, sorry. ITIN number.
Okay, we're talking about the same thing.
Regardless,
you
you
want to
can
respond to that?
register to vote with that TIN. And And so anybody can go to the Social Security Administration website and say, listen, I want to file taxes, and you get an identification tax ID number. I've seen it in working with vendors and that kind of thing. What happens now is that the HAVA Act has allowed these people to take that piece of paper and take it to register to vote. And so it's my understanding that we've had 1 million people in Texas register to vote since the first of this year with just a TIN, a tax ID number, issued by the Social Security Administration. So what are we going to do about that? That's why I'm saying we cannot. Our time for having a bleeding heart with all of this has passed. It's either America first or it's not.
So I think maybe it's either what I'm saying, maybe there's a lack of understanding, or maybe we are not understanding the point we're making. You don't get a TIN number from the Social Security Office, Caroline. Okay, the ITIN, Individual Tax Identification Number, is not issued by the Social Security Office. Maybe you can do some research on that.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I think you guys both gave your position on this one. Let's get into election integrity for just a second here. We have had a lot of questions about this. We all, we're all living in or around District 7. I think we all know what happened in the last couple of local elections, the last big federal election. For those of you that are watching us streaming online, y'all know about Fulton, you all know about Maricopa County. Harris County has been one of the most suspicious places in the country for elections over the past few years. And it never really got the national attention it probably deserved. Interestingly enough, we were talking about this earlier off the air. Here in District 7, there's a lot of conservative enclaves, a lot of polling locations where conservatives go. Strangely enough, in an election we had here last year, those are the exact places where we ran out of paper. Those are the places where Republicans go to vote. Opened late, they closed early, we didn't have enough paper ballots. A lot of bizarre things happened. That's just here in this part of this city, like just this neighborhood. What do we do about election integrity? How do we fix it? Caroline, I'll let you go first.
So elections have been deemed a national security issue. And so constitutionally speaking, and I've read the Constitution in this regard, I do believe that the federal government, the Congress, can pass legislation to determine that we need paper ballots. What I am pushing for, at least at the state level right now, because I'm not in Congress yet, paper ballots, same day voting in your precinct, right? None of this precinct wide voting. I can attest from my election day when I went to vote, there was a missing candidate, just not there to choose. And of course, that candidate's opponent in the primary won the primary in a landslide. So how many times was this person's name omitted from the ballot? These electronic machines are causing all kinds of hiccups. And that's if you're looking at it from an innocent standpoint, but any machine can be hacked, period. That's what machines are. They're hackable. So we've got to go back to a paper ballot, same day voting, and voting at the precinct level.
Kenneth.
I believe parameters should be set in place to ensure that the elections that we have in this country are legit, and everyone who is, eligible to vote, and those parameters should be set in place. And right now, some of the issues that were mentioned in the last election was running out of paper in some of the poll locations. I think right now one of the things that recently was passed was that any of the election administrators, right, they should be elected officials, not just those who are appointed by any and everyone, right? So we think some of those policies that were recently put in place, they will help that. Taking a case in point, the very last primary we had on March 5th, I think there was an improvement, I think, generally between the last election and the March 5th election. But does that mean that there is a perfect election yet? No, we need to continue to improve on what we currently have. In the past, there's been some issues with election integrity. I think concerted efforts should be made to making sure that issues that are identified are fixed. And who else could help push that agenda, if not for people who are very, very savvy like us?
All right, both good answers from both of you. I think I had a lot of people ask me this question. This is one you always wonder about, is as a party, are we unified? One of you is going to get the nomination. The other one's not. Are you going to endorse your runoff opponent? Caroline, would you like to go first?
We've been through this. I mean, neither one of us wants to see a Democrat hold this seat. And so absolutely, we will get behind the other candidate. And We're going to do this on film right now. We're shaking.
Yay! I love that.
We do not want Lizzie Fletcher to win. This is a Republican seat. It needs to be a Republican seat again. Yes, the party is divided. I think that once one of us, passes this primary, this runoff, I think that the party will unify against whatever Republican candidates are on the ballot in November. I don't worry about that. I do see division within the party from group to group. He and I both attend a lot of grassroots functions. Each one has its own kind of flavor or tone. Some are what I would say is more right wing, and some are more establishment. And I do see a divide there. And I'm just praying that come November we all unite against against the left, against communism, and get behind every Republican candidate.
Yeah, I love that. That's very cool. Caroline, you guys know one of you is going to get the nomination, and then whoever it is, like Kenneth, the liberal the Chronicle's going to say you hate women. They're going to say Caroline hates black people. I mean, it's very predictable what's going to happen. Whoever gets the nomination.
If you allow me, sort of, is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
So I know. Right at the very onset of this congressional race, one of the things that I did was I took my friend here to a lunch. We had a lunch at one of the restaurants.
What was the restaurant?
Papacitos.
Okay, all right.
In the district.
Yes. Yes.
Papacito.
Yes. So, well, and I believe one of the reasons why I wanted that to happen was because I don't think it's something that is noble to shred ourselves in the primary. And throughout my campaign, so far, I can tell you, and if there is, since we are live, you can point to that and say, this is what specifically I have said, or my campaign or any of my supporters have done that you think is shredding, my opponent. I will never do that. But it's really sad that it's not exactly what that agreement, that gentleman agreement, we had has been moving forward. And I think we should desist from that. I think we should play it fair. Let's talk to the voters. Let's go and reach out to the voters. At the end of the day, the people would choose who they want. But let's not shred ourselves. I don't think it's fair to target, and shred ourselves in the primary. The reason why some people will not want to align in the general election is because if you feel you've been targeted, you've been attacked, maliciously, or lies have been said that are not true about you because the other person wants to win, I think it's a very, very unfair thing. And then in the general election, you now see that because of such, history or past, people don't want to align. So I think why I'm saying this is an appeal to you, to not just to you alone. You can also talk to some of your supporters to desist from things like that.
That's going to go both ways, Kenneth, and you just need to understand that there are things also floating around. I say very few things myself. You know that. There are things. I have my supporters, and you have your supporters, and that's politics, right? It is. Unfortunately, It's worse in high school, you guys, and I'm just being plain and honest here. This is not a messy. This is a messy game.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Unfortunately, it is.
No, it shouldn't be. I tell you, politics, Caroline, is not a person. Politics is a process. Have you ever met someone called politics? Politics is a process. So
I'm just saying,
it's a process,
I have my supporters, you have your supporters, and they're not going to agree.
No, I understand that. Maybe what we are saying again is very different, Caroline. What we are saying right now is very different. What I'm saying is politics is a process. The people who participate in the process participate in the political process. If you're clean and you're a decent person, you have nobility. No, you don't have to win a Nobel Prize to be noble. If you're a noble person, every lies that is said about someone, I will never entertain something that I know is a lie, for example, to be spread about you. Let me take, for example.
Can we not?
Okay, good. I will not go into that rabbit hole.
Let's not. I mean, I don't.
But take the appeal I'm giving to you.
This is not a place for you and I to go air our dirty laundry.
Yes, you guys both agree you would endorse each other. That was the question.
Absolutely.
Politics is a full contact sport. We're all in the same party here. I'll tell you what, a couple more quick friendly questions. Can we do that, and then we'll wrap this up?
Please, if this appeal will really, really go into the heart,
okay.
I'm a peace-loving person. My as an individual, I don't like unhealthy competition. Okay, competition is good. When it becomes unhealthy, when there are no rules, I am not in. There has to be rules. There has to be decency in rule. If you sit there and your mother has been attacked by your opponent because of politics, I don't think you're going to be smiling with that.
Did that happen?
Okay.
That happened to me.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Not by his opponent.
Okay, but by a third party. Okay.
Absolutely not.
But from your campaign.
No, probably from a supporter. Absolutely not from my campaign.
To be clear, your position is that he has a good mom. Is that?
His mom raised, I guess 5 wonderful kids, and I've met her.
6.
I would never say anything horrible about your mother.
Well,
and let me just say that there are horrible things said by his supporters about me, worse than that. Trust me, and I'm not going to bring that up here. Okay, it's politics. Your people are going to say whatever they say about you. My people are going to say it. That's how it works, unfortunately. And you've got to get past it. We've got a finish line that we've got to get to. It is your supporters versus my supporters. This isn't coming from me, and it's not coming from you. And if you can't get past that, then I don't know. We just got to make it to the finish line, Kenneth.
No. So again, I am a very transparent person. I'm a very open book person. I believe politics can be done in a decent way without entertaining lies.
You are naive in that regard, because this is one of your supporters that said something absolutely horrendous about me. Horrendous.
Do we all agree that the Democrats are probably going to say worse things about all of us? Would we all agree on that?
And so we just move on.
There's a guy on Twitter called Houston Hate Watch, and all he does is watch my social media and listen to this radio show so he could try to catch me saying something vaguely offensive so he could contact our sponsors. I mean, it's ugly, guys. Like we all know.
They're after they're after your paycheck.
If it's about naivety, one who is naive, I think who should be naive is someone who feels or who wants to create the impression that he's not aware of some of the things that I'm saying. Let's not come out here and be as smiley and as I don't fake things. I'm a very, very transparent person. If we're going to call a spade, let us call it a spade. Okay? I think we should all be mindful. And you brought up, Kenny, a very important issue. We should unite again, behind ourselves when we get to the general election. And we have taken that, agreement. But these are things that I think we should address, especially given the fact that we are going into a runoff election. And I know it can be very, tough and stressful period, but I think we can still keep decency in front of everything we're doing.
I think you and I do a good job with that. I do. I think he and I do a good job with it. But there are things that his supporters and my supporters that trust me, it's far worse than what you're implying.
Okay.
What has been said. And so we're just not going to go there, Kenneth. You and I we're going to smile, and we are going to be friendly. And, I pray for you and your family. We need to get through this. This is not an easy business. It's just not.
All right, well,
you know the people. If you know the people, though, like, it's not a matter of getting past it or not getting past it. You know the people. I don't want to mention names. I don't want to go into the specificity of these issues. But again, it's a very passionate. If it's not as important as this, I would not hang on to this. My mom, for example, was called a hard Democrat, a woman who became a United States citizen last year, and my election was the first election that she was voting on. The first election she voted in this country was for her son.
And you think one of Caroline's?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm telling you, I have emails and I'll show you.
That comes from the GOP data center. This isn't just coming
you're
out of
sending
people's
it out.
mouths. It is coming from a GOP website.
And then you are sending that out to people, and it's not true because my mom has never voted.
For me, if it's right there and it's coming from the GOP, that would be fact.
Just
now
imagine
you're
that.
arguing that it's fact.
But would we all agree that his mom's she's not on the ballot?
She's never
His
voted
mom's not
before.
on the ballot.
Okay.
No.
Why would she be attacked?
I'm
though?
not attacking your mom.
Because you said
You think
she
that
was
I'm
a
putting this
Democrat.
stuff out here, and why would you think that I'm putting it out there?
So I don't think that's right, Caroline. If I have respect for
I'm
your
not
parents,
going to say what
I will
your
not-
supporters
I will not-
have reported back to me. We're just not going to, because I'm above that. All right?
I'm not above the
trust
truth.
me, it is worse than the accusations that you're making right now. Far worse than the accusations that you're making right now. So we're just going to leave that.
But my campaign would never
Move
put
on,
something
Kenneth.
out about you that I know is a lie.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, guys. I think
Move on.
you both made your point about this. All right, let's move on, guys. A couple more questions, friendly questions before we're done here. We agree we're all on the same team, right? All that being said, the role of government, we talked a little bit about the role of government earlier. A couple last questions for you submitted by listeners. Kenneth, I'll let you go first on this one. What is your favorite amendment and why? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, again, I think that there are the U.S. Constitution, for example, the First Amendment, right? Then the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms. We need to secure that. I think one of the things that drives us to this country as immigrants is the fact that this is the only country in the world where you can air your view out and not be afraid of standing your ground and saying whatever you want to say. And I think that's one of the best or one of the beauties of this country.
Caroline, favorite amendment and why?
I'm going to say the Second Amendment is probably moving up above the first at this point, just because the government wants to take our guns because the government wants to do something to us that would make us want to shoot them. And that's coming. They're after our kids. And for me, that is the end of our species, really. This transgender agenda is, the idea is so that we don't procreate. It's filth and debauchery. So the things that are transpiring, it makes the Second Amendment all the more important. However, I think that the fall of the nation really happens when the First Amendment is gone. Freedom of the press, that's already gone. That's been taken by the left. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We're hanging on by a thread in those regards. Redress grievances. There's one other. And we're not allowed to have our grievances redressed right now. We are all grieving, right, over this nation. We are all complaining. None of us are happy. We are silenced when we complain. And so our grievances are not being redressed by this government. So they are violating our Constitution.
I think you guys both gave great answers. One more question for both of you. This is my most controversial question. I have asked every candidate who has ever ran for office this question in the state of Texas. Perhaps this will make people very upset at your answer. In District 7, it could be near District 7, where Caroline is the best place to get barbecue. Go ahead.
Oh, boy. I just had some barbecue at King Ranch Kitchen, but I'm not going to argue that that's the best.
I mean, it is good. That's a couple blocks from here. I eat there, too.
What is the name of that little place that's at the railroad tracks on Chimney Rock?
Oh,
It's been there like decades and decades, like West Park and Chimney Rock.
I don't know what it is. I don't know.
It's good, though.
I will allow a Tex-Mex restaurant if you want.
I love Cyclone and Nios, and those are like all throughout the district. They have the best taquitos like ever, and you got to get the queso to put on the taquito.
Outstanding. Excellent answer, Kenneth.
Well, Papa's Barbecue, I think, went to
Good choice.
Papacitos, but I love Papa's Barbecue. I think that's
all right.
Really good.
You're both wrong. The answer is Rogel's Barbecue on Voss. I'm sorry.
What? All right. You're taking me then.
I'm Kenny Webster. I want to thank both of the candidates here. You guys both get, like I said, both of you would be infinitely better than Lizzie Fletcher. Kenneth Omoruyi, Caroline Kane. I want to thank, there's about 450 people watching us on Twitter right now. More on YouTube, and I think we probably have 3 people watching us on our Facebook page with 450,000 people. So maybe we could fix that problem at some point. If you've enjoyed this debate, thank you so much. Subscribe to my podcast. Please share, retweet this video. Be an informed voter. Tell your friends. Get the word out. I love you all. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you to both of the people for participating in this debate, and have an awesome